Idiot tries to follow me home because I wouldn't fix his truck for practically free, so I took this scenic route. Don't worry, I called a rescue. He's a very entitled veteran and supposedly a Purple Heart one. He's also a very racist mega-type dumbass. One of the reasons my boss will not absolutely have him as a customer during business hours, but will work on his truck after hours with no one else around. The usual MO is he tries to fix something on his truck and fucks it up, then expects everyone else to fix it for really cheap, using his veteran status as a guilt trip because he already had done half the work himself. This time he fixed his brakes and somehow no longer had rear brakes. His truck is 2 bolt failures away from a junkyard. My boss is out of town, so I was in charge for the week with strict instructions to not help him while he's out. He showed up at the shop today demanding I fix his truck. I had already closed the building up and was ready to leave. I told him when G gets back he'll fix your truck. He didn't like that answer. That said something I picked up on to be racist remark and told him to fuck off till G gets back. He gets pissed and grabs a piece of wood and throws it into the desert. I start my drive home, and a second or two later I notice his truck behind me and matching my lane changes. I live 40 miles away, so I knew he wouldn't keep up with me in the hills, and I didn't want to kill him by outpacing him. So I call my friend who's only about 9 to 10 miles in the middle of the desert and told him I was going to swing by because I think I'm being followed and I was going to take the scenic route. He told me he was going to meet me at the halfway, and if he had to, he would scare him off. The scenic route is 7 miles of rough desert road that will destroy any truck without long travel suspension. A lot of locals use it to test and tune their desert off-roaders. I get to the turnoff into the trail and I see his headlights turn in behind me. At that point I shut my lights off and turn on my desert headlights and floor it. I made sure to lure him into the first set of jumps. Right before the jumps I kicked up a bunch of dust and turned off all the lights and waited at the other end. I see his headlights again, and I could tell he cleared the first jump, but I could see his headlights shake going down, which is a sign of suspension failure from hitting the ground hard. I turned on all my lights so he could see where I was as I left and proceeded to my friend's location. He was waiting for me with his brother and a big shit-eating grin. He told me he saw me about a mile away because of the lights but couldn't see the other truck behind, and he just said, "Looks like he must have missed the first jump. I'm gonna call rescue." We hung out another few minutes and took a different trail that led me to the highway home. Later in the evening, I get a call that he was fine, but his truck was literally bent at the cab and bed from the 5-foot drop he experienced. He said he got lost going home. I plan on calling G in the morning and letting him know I'm having that dumbass trespassed from the shop for that stunt. Deny me a raise because you want to steal my husband? Enjoy unemployment. Many moons ago, think early 2000s, I worked for a small tech company in the Midwest. I started out as a customer service rep. My husband also worked there in a higher level position in a different department. There was an office manager there who did not like me at all when I got hired. She originally was a billing rep and got moved to the office manager position when the original one who hired me quit. As an added note, her brother also worked there in the same department as my husband. I was pretty much a model employee. My stats were great, I was always on time, and customer feedback surveys were always glowing when I was on shift. However, it seemed like she had it out for me because she was always trying to find something to nitpick about my performance. I divulged all this to my husband, and he admitted that prior to us getting together and before I was hired, she had expressed interest in dating him, but he rejected her. I complained to the owner, but he pretty much just shrugged it off because she had been there forever and he didn't want to rock the boat. Come performance review time, and she gave me a terrible review and a tiny raise, along the lines of everyone else on the team getting 50 cents to $1 per hour raise, and she gave me a nickel. About 6 months later, there was a big shake-up in the company, and the general manager and 2 higher-level people from my husband's department left to work at another company who did the same type of business. Shortly thereafter, a couple big accounts my boss was pursuing ended up going to the other company. Thinking that perhaps information about the accounts he was trying to land was leaked to the other company, he sent a couple people home, with pay, for 2 days while he investigated, including the office manager who hated me. On day 2, he met with the team and confirmed that there was no leak, so he would be bringing the workers back in. Cue PettyRevenge. I had found the office manager's blog some time ago, and she had been posting frequent updates since the shakeup. When she was sent home, she posted multiple updates about the situation, including how she figured the owner would screw up payroll, not pay taxes, and get in trouble with the IRS. She also posted some pretty derogatory things about the owner. She did make a feeble attempt to keep it anonymous by spelling everyone's names backwards and making up a fake name for the company, but it was very clear it was her and our company she was talking about. After the team meeting, I asked to meet with my boss alone and showed him all the posts. He dug in and found even more damning stuff she had written, including how she couldn't stand me and wanted to get me fired. I hadn't even seen that post until then. I couldn't contain my shit-eating grin when she returned to the office, only to be told to pack up her stuff and go. Within a year, I had a big pay bump and a promotion to management, and I assume she is off somewhere making people miserable. Think I don't speak English? Okay, I don't. My husband, 36M, is of Chinese descent but was born in America. He speaks perfect English without an accent, okay, an American accent, and is basically just a regular guy but does deal with his fair share of racism, both small and large, but he deals with it with grace. Last weekend, we were at a new restaurant that had opened up, and after we sat down, the waitress brought us our menus. She then said, in that condescending way Americans speak to non-English speakers, "Do you need anything?" My husband initially looked pissed, but then something sparkled in his eye. He turns to the waitress and very loudly says in a very exaggerated Asian accent, "Help with menu." He then held the waitress captive for about 10 minutes, having her explain the whole menu to him dish by dish, occasionally having her repeat things. Then my husband looked at me and said, again very loudly, "And oh good we go." So we grabbed our stuff and walked out of the restaurant and went somewhere else. Karen neighbor complained. Now everyone has to suffer. Our Karen neighbor complained about another neighbor's motorcycle. It's a stock bike, so he didn't add any loud muffles, and prior to this he was very respectful. He would start the bike and drive conservatively out of the neighborhood. But then enters Karen. Karen complains about everything, and everyone knows her. She has complained several times about the motorcycle and calls the cops frequently for dumb things. This time she decides to go too far and tries to prevent the motorcycle from leaving the neighborhood. She nearly ran him over. So now, because Karen literally tried to murder someone, the motorcycle rider starts his motorcycle a few times a day, rides to Karen's house a couple houses down, revs his engine for a few minutes, then speeds away in the most obnoxious way possible. He's even had some of his buddies come by in a sort of, "Fuck you, Karen" parade. I talked to him. We know each other and he's a decent dude, and he at least agrees to stop doing this at night and to ride safely since there are a lot of kids in the area. I honestly can't blame him at all because everybody hates this bitch and she deserves much worse considering what she did. I just wish there was a legal way to get her to stop being such a bitch. Want to play mailbox baseball? Fine, it will cost you one window. My sister lives in a more rural area and has recently been plagued with having her mailbox smashed in twice in 1 month. Someone was playing mailbox baseball, and she was one of the victims. She asked for my help and was worried about staying within the law to protect herself. I told her that we could figure something out, so I went to Home Depot and purchased 2 identical steel mailboxes, the traditional kind with the rounded top. I took one mailbox and glued a layer of 1/16 foam underlayment to the inside. I filled it with concrete, making sure to add the appropriate rebar with a curved handle sticking out of the end. Once everything was set, I cut off the outer mailbox shell and used a torch to burn off the foam underlayment still stuck to the concrete. What was left was a slightly undersized concrete plug that would perfectly fit in the second mailbox, and that could be inserted and removed. You see, my sister is afraid of snakes. By inserting the concrete plug into the mailbox at night, it would give her the peace of mind that a snake can't enter her mailbox. I installed the second mailbox, informed my sister how the anti-snake concrete plug worked, and explained that the best time to put it in the mailbox would be at night. Strangely enough, one morning there was a mark on her new mailbox and a bunch of small glass pieces along the road. Hypothetically speaking, it was the kind of glass produced by someone swinging a baseball bat, having it bounce back off of a mailbox, and smashing a car window. On a positive note, her mailbox has remained snake-free. Fuck with my job, and I'll fuck with your marriage. I already know I'm the asshole for this, but this is what happened. My manager is an Indian woman and was constantly making passive-aggressive comments about my ethnicity, Afghan. I've worked at Subway for around 6 months, and neither did I or any of my coworkers get along with her. She was the biggest micromanager I've ever met and would make up random rules, then would yell at us in front of the customers if we made a mistake. I know she made up these rules because when I would follow them, the owner of the store would question what I was doing and tell me I'm not supposed to do that. She would also made racist remarks about me and my coworkers. My friend was explaining how she had to slaughter a goat for her religion, then she laughed in her face and said, "That's disgusting." And on my first day, I told her I was from Afghanistan. She said, "You're a fake Afghan. You look Chinese." A couple months fast-forwarded, and I had to work in the morning with just her. I was at the front taking care of orders when there was a huge rush of people. She was in the back eating food when she wasn't even on break. So as I'm taking care of all these orders, I like to frequently change my gloves after handling pork to accommodate any religious beliefs. These gloves would pile up, and yeah, there were some crumbs on the table. However, when the rush was done, she then decided to come out and started scolding me for making a mess. I explained to her that there was a rush, and I didn't have time to start cleaning in the middle of orders. She still insisted that I could have took out the trash and wiped the counters when there was a line of people waiting. Then started pointing out everything I did wrong, following with a, "You're like a baby, you don't know how to do anything." I was so done with her, so I left right then and there. I told my friend what happened. She also worked with me, and we decided to make a fake Instagram account to catfish her husband. Yes, I know this was wrong, but we were bored petty teenagers. His Instagram was pretty easy to find, so we messaged him. He instantly responded back and kept flirting with us, wanting to meet up the next day. We sent the screenshot to our manager, but she blocked us, so I guess she wanted to stay Delulu. My traditional grandmother asked me a question and wasn't happy with my answer. So a little bit of background for context. I, 32F, am the oldest of the grandkids and am a first-generation Australian with an Eastern European background. My father's side moved here when he was quite young, so he didn't have too much trouble getting accustomed to the Aussie lifestyle. My grandparents, on the other hand, decided that they were too old to fit in, so they instead made friends with other similar oldies, never really adapting to the differences between the two countries and maintaining very traditional views. When I was 18, I fell madly in love with a boy in my grade. He happened to be from a neighboring Eastern European country, which shared a lot of cultural similarities. Since I was the oldest, I was the first to date outside of our nationality. When we first started dating, my grandma made a few unsavory remarks about him and his country, but nothing that was concerning enough to address, so I just ignored them. After all, we were taught to respect our elders. Over the course of the relationship, her comments increased, which annoyed me greatly, leading me to very politely tell her to shut up. But to her pleasure, the relationship ended after 3 years, not related to her comments. When she discovered the news, she joyfully asked me a question that annoyed me greatly, so I responded, "Grandma, did you learn your lesson?" Me, "Excuse me? Grandma, did you learn your lesson?" Me, "What lesson are you talking about?" Grandma, "Are you going to date nice Eastern European boy now?" Me, thinking, what if it don't want to date a nice Eastern European boy? What did I want to date a nice Eastern European girl instead? Grandma went instantly pale and yelled no. My mom yelled at me for upsetting my grandma, and I walked away giggling. Coworker was pushing all his workload onto me for months. Her and me were made to be a team on a 6-month project. Every day, she would leave for 3 to 5 hours. Whenever I asked her about where she disappeared to, and every day I only heard nonsense. The manger needed help, the new guys need help, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. 2 months into the project, I was fed up. I could go to HR, but I had a better idea. I'll take few personal days. Let's see how she does. You see, every day you have to submit the amount of work that you got done with. And without me there for 4 days, she couldn't finish on time. She even called me to ask when I was going to be back. It's not the same without you here. When I went back to work, she was back at its same pattern. So now I went to HR. Now I have a new project partner. And it's someone who doesn't slack off. I paid about $2 to piss off an annoying Frenchman. It would take many paragraphs to vent about all the little annoying things this guy did over the course of 3 days. Here's the TLDR. Along the west coast of Ireland, on a group camping/biking trip of about a dozen people, insecure French guy kept blathering on about how France best, France this, France that, well in France, blah 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 blah. So during a stop in a small town, I bought a baguette and stashed it in my bags. At that night's dinner, I whipped it out and started eating it, corn on the cob style. Frenchie, what are you doing? Me, huh? The other people at the picnic table looked either confused or amused. So I took a few more horizontal nibbles and then passed the Dutchie to my left to Linda, who had expressed annoyance about Frenchie earlier. Without skipping a beat, she nibbled off a row of crust and then passed it to her left. This continued for another 3 people, and just before Frenchie's turn, he stood up and walked away, muttering something in French. As Frenchie walked away, in the thickest of Boston accents, my friend Mike said, "Fuck that guy." Karen got her due at the grocery store. My 40M, almost 4-year-old daughter loves grocery shopping with me, especially if we get one of those race car grocery carts. If it's a slow time at the store, I take her to the deli, where there is a wide open space in the corner, and spin a circle with the cart. She loves it. It usually gathers smiles in the rare case someone is nearby. Just a dad having fun with his daughter, right? Just yesterday, after doing a single spin, we went on our way when an older lady, I'd say early 70s, came towards us shaking her head and glaring at us. I gave her a perplexed look in response to her scowl, and she muttered something about having absolutely no respect for public spaces. I responded, "Sorry, ma'am, I was just having fun with my child. Sorry to have offended you. Have a nice day." I thought that was that and was happy to move on, but she continued, "Shame on you for teaching your child such poor manners. I taught my children how to behave in public." Me, "Clearly that's a lesson you didn't bother to learn yourself. I wonder how well they turned out." Muttered something about them being perfect. My almost 4-year-old is extremely perceptive and sensitive, and asked if she had done something wrong. I then explained as loud as I could. Me, "Absolutely not, honey. That's just a very grumpy old bully." She angrily responded, "I am not grumpy. I just want to be left alone." Me, with my stern face, "No? Well, you certainly are a bully then. And if you want to be left alone, I strongly suggest you start minding your own fucking business. You taught your children to behave in stores? I'm teaching mine to stand up to bullies like you. Thank you for this perfect teaching moment." She finally caught the hint to shut her trap and moved along, still muttering and shaking her head. Petty revenge commences. Twice more we encountered her in the other aisles, and I made sure to overdo the race car theme, but would abruptly stop when we got near her, saying loudly to my daughter, "Careful now, honey. We don't want to anger the fun police." And my daughter played along perfectly. As fate would have it, we were approaching the checkout at nearly the same time. We got there first, but I magnanimously allowed her in front of us to be first in line at the solitary man checkout, knowing she would complain, and she did not disappoint. She immediately started to explain to the till person that she was harassed by me and my daughter this whole time, and how we were disrupting the whole store. The till lady cautiously looked over at me, and I just gave a totally confused shrug. I'm still in my formal work clothes, suit and tie, and my daughter is wearing her adorable poofy fairy skirt. Picture perfect innocence. Having obviously seen me let the lady in front of us in line, the till person gave me an apologetic smile and just nodded and smiled, humoring Karen. She must have tried complaining further at customer services because we were now leaving at the same time, despite our full grocery cart child insisting on helping with the bagging. Once outside, I made sure to drag race that cart past her as loud and as obnoxiously as I could, and my daughter squealed in delight. I didn't even bother looking back at that crusty old bitch. She ruined my shopping outing. I hope I ruined her entire day. I do feel bad for people that are this desperately miserable, but I also have zero patience for them taking it out on other people just trying to enjoy a sliver of joy in their day. I think if enough of us consistently confront people like this, they might just learn to keep their mouths shut and their poor attitudes to themselves. Mandatory edit, formatting, gratitude, and trolls, no content edits. Thanks for all the fatherhood props. Made my day. And thanks for all the new grocery store shenanigans tips. Can't wait to bring joy to hundreds of people while pissing off one. My mind is blown about the people defending this lady, labeling me the bully, and shaming my parenthood. They're just trolls, right? Please say they're trolls. Shame to say it worked, though. I responded to them. I failed.